Welcome to Royal Empire, your trusted source for royal news and insight. There is a certain quiet tension you can feel right before something major unfolds, and that is exactly the atmosphere surrounding Buckingham Palace right now. But the first ripple did not come from the palace walls. It came from California, where Prince Harry was seen boarding a private jet alone, moving with urgency, like someone who suddenly realized an important chapter of his life might be closing. No cameras, no staged smiles, no carefully timed appearances. Just Harry heading back to the place he once walked away from. The reason is simple and serious. The palace has officially begun reviewing who is allowed to keep royal titles. And this time it is not just symbolic discussion. Names, status, and long-term legacy are all under scrutiny. Even the future use of Duke and Duchess branding is no longer guaranteed. Public opinion has been shifting for weeks, with a growing number of people across Britain openly questioning whether titles should remain with royals who no longer serve the monarchy. As conversations around Prince William's future role continue, the idea of a streamlined royal family is gaining traction. The logic is straightforward. Fewer working royals means clearer roles and fewer complications. And when changes apply broadly, they feel less personal. That approach has only intensified speculation around Harry, Meghan, and their children. This is where things start to feel real. A formal review means decisions backed by advisors, legal experts, and long-term planning. Titles are not just symbols. They represent responsibility and service. When those titles are used primarily for personal branding, the palace sees a problem that must be addressed. Timing matters too. This review follows private meetings focused on the future of the monarchy, and when institutions talk about streamlining, it usually means change is coming. Sources close to palace operations suggest there is growing concern about royal connections being used commercially. The message is subtle but firm. You cannot step away from royal duties and still lean on royal identity when it suits you. That message alone sent shockwaves across media outlets and social platforms. Once news of the review became public, attention quickly turned to Harry. Reports suggest he reacted immediately, leaving California to address the situation in person. This was not about appearances. It was about urgency. When the palace says discussions will happen in person, that usually means the matter is serious. Harry's return was quiet, direct, and closely watched. At the heart of this situation is a contradiction many people have noticed. The Sussexes stepped back citing a desire for privacy, yet their lives since then have been highly visible. Books, interviews, documentaries, and public storytelling have kept them firmly in the spotlight, often tied directly to their royal identities. That contrast has made it difficult for the palace to ignore growing concerns. Public reaction has been mixed, but increasingly vocal. Many people are asking the same question. If royal life was something they wanted to leave behind, why continue to benefit from the titles connected to it? The palace response appears to be simple. Choices have consequences, and independence comes with boundaries. Attention has also turned toward Meghan, especially past statements that are now being replayed and re-examined. Moments that once passed quietly are being viewed differently as public sentiment shifts. Humor and casual comments from earlier appearances are now being interpreted through a more critical lens, particularly as questions about titles and legacy grow louder. Behind palace doors, conversations have reportedly been direct and focused. This is no longer about personal feelings. It is about the structure and credibility of the monarchy moving forward. The message being emphasized is consistency. The same rules must apply to everyone, regardless of public interest or past popularity. Back in California, the mood has reportedly shifted as well. Media allies appear more cautious, and the once constant buzz around the Sussex brand has slowed. Public attention moves quickly, And even strong narratives can lose momentum when audiences feel the story has reached its limit. Online reactions reflect that shift. Some voices celebrate accountability. Others argue titles should not matter, and many simply watch with curiosity. What is clear is that patience is wearing thin. The idea that you can criticize an institution while continuing to benefit from it is no longer resonating with large sections of the public. Then came the palace statement that changed everything. Calm, measured, and unmistakably clear. The review of royal titles will continue, with cooperation from both the crown and parliamentary authorities, and no one is excluded. That single line carried more weight than any interview or documentary ever could. For the first time, this conversation moved beyond speculation. It became process. It became policy. And that is when reality set in. Titles are not guaranteed. They are granted with purpose, and they can be reassessed. So here we are, Harry in London facing the institution he once left behind. Meghan in California watching the story unfold from afar. And the titles that once felt permanent now sit in uncertainty. This is not about drama. It is about definition. What does it mean to belong to the monarchy? And what does it mean to leave it behind? The palace is not acting with anger. It is acting with intention. The message is clear. You are free to walk your own path, but you cannot carry the crown with you. This story is far from over, and something tells us the next chapter will be just as revealing. The focus has now shifted from speculation to consequence, and inside royal circles the conversation has become noticeably quieter and far more serious. When institutions like the monarchy go silent, it usually means decisions are already moving forward behind closed doors. This is no longer about headlines or public reaction. It is about structure, responsibility, and long-term stability. Within the palace, advisors are reportedly examining every title through a single question. Does this role still serve the crown? Or has it become disconnected from duty altogether? That distinction matters more than ever as the monarchy prepares for the future. Titles were never designed to function as personal identifiers without obligation. They were meant to represent service, continuity, and public trust. What makes this moment particularly significant is that the process is not being rushed. Every step is calculated. Legal frameworks are being reviewed. Historical precedents are being examined. The palace understands that any adjustment will echo far beyond one family. It will shape how royal identity is understood for generations. Public sentiment continues to evolve alongside these discussions. The emotional reactions that once dominated the conversation are giving way to more practical thinking. People are asking whether royal recognition should remain tied to individuals who no longer represent the institution in action. The question is no longer controversial. It is becoming logical. Across the Atlantic, the atmosphere appears far less controlled than before. The absence of coordinated messaging has not gone unnoticed. Silence, especially when unexpected, often signals uncertainty. And uncertainty is difficult to manage when public perception has already begun to shift. Media coverage reflects this change as well. Stories are now framed around governance rather than personality. Analysts are discussing policy, precedent, and the mechanics of royal authority. That transition matters because it removes emotion from the equation and replaces it with process. Inside the palace, one guiding principle seems to dominate the discussion: consistency. If the monarchy is to remain credible, the same standards must apply to everyone, regardless of popularity, past roles, or public attention. Selective enforcement weakens institutions. Uniform rules strengthen them. This is why any potential changes will likely appear subtle at first. A quiet adjustment here. An official listing updated there. No dramatic announcements, just steady recalibration. That is how lasting authority operates. For those watching closely, the message is becoming clearer by the day. Royal identity is not a souvenir you take with you. It is a role you actively fulfill. When that role ends, the identity must evolve with it. This moment represents a turning point, not fueled by conflict, but by clarity. The monarchy is not responding to pressure. It is responding to purpose. And as the dust continues to settle, one truth remains unavoidable. Choices define outcomes. Independence reshapes identity. And institutions, when they adapt, do so on their own terms. Stay connected with Royal Empire, because the quiet moments often reveal the most powerful changes. What is becoming increasingly clear is that this situation is not being driven by emotion or family tension, but by long-term planning. The monarchy is looking decades ahead, not weeks. Every decision now is measured against how it will hold up in history, not how it will play in the next news cycle. At the center of this shift is a renewed focus on meaning. Titles are being re-examined for what they represent rather than who holds them. Within royal systems, symbolism only survives when it is protected. When symbols lose definition, institutions lose authority. That is the calculation happening right now. There is also growing recognition that public trust must be earned continuously. It is not inherited automatically, and it is not preserved through visibility alone. Trust comes from alignment between role and action. When that alignment breaks, adjustment becomes necessary. Observers have noticed how carefully controlled the palace messaging has been. There are no dramatic statements, no emotional language, and no personal references. This restraint is deliberate. The monarchy understands that influence comes from restraint, not reaction. Meanwhile, the broader public conversation has shifted once again. Attention is moving away from individual narratives and toward the system itself. People are asking how modern institutions adapt without losing their identity. That question extends beyond royalty. It resonates because it reflects how tradition survives in a changing world. International interest remains high, but the tone has softened. Where there was once intensity, there is now curiosity. Audiences are watching not for confrontation, but for outcome. That change signals maturity in how the story is being received. In practical terms, the palace appears committed to a gradual transition rather than a sharp break. That approach allows stability while reinforcing boundaries. It sends a message without creating disruption. Quiet consistency is far more effective than sudden force. This moment also highlights a deeper truth about legacy. Legacy is not maintained through association alone. It is built through participation. When participation ends, legacy must be redefined. For those directly affected, this period likely feels uncertain. But uncertainty is often the space where clarity forms. The absence of immediate resolution does not signal indecision. It signals careful consideration. As history has shown time and again, the monarchy rarely acts impulsively. When it moves, it does so with purpose, precedent, and patience. The current process fits that pattern perfectly. What happens next may not arrive with headlines or spectacle. It may appear quietly, almost unnoticed at first. But over time, its significance will become undeniable. Because when institutions clarify their values, everything connected to them adjusts accordingly. Stay with Royal Empire, where we continue to follow the story not for drama, but for the deeper meaning behind the moments that shape history.